Good morning. Welcome to Seattle Atheist Church. Let me start off by saying our creed. Seattle Atheist Church is founded on the principles of scientific naturalism and secular ethics. Truth claims are attempted here, and we stand ready to revise our thinking in light of new information. We attempt to be excellent to all conscious beings, and we believe in good because good works in non-mysterious ways. If that sounds right to you, then you are probably in the right place. So the way we do it here is that our members ourselves give the talks, and what we consider really, so there's, the doing church is also really the critical thinking that takes place after the talks and sharing our thoughts with each other. Before we get started, so the members ourselves give the talk, and Ryan today is going to give a talk. But before we get started, I wanted to remind everyone that first Friday of the month we have movie night. So please sign up if you want to be invited to that and find out where it is and all of that. The other thing is that next Saturday we have our we go for our secular Saturday social. That takes place at Browers in the afternoon, and if you sign up on the website, you'll get the information about that. So those two things are coming up. And thank you, Ryan, for giving the talk today.
All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm going to do a talk on Jia Jiang's TED Talk, essentially, but he also has a blog, rejectiontherapy.com, where you can actually see all 100 rejection attempts. So the full title of the book is Rejection Proof: How I Beat Fear and Became Invincible Through 100 Days of Rejection. So the general idea is he was terrified of rejection throughout entrepreneurship and life. So what he did to help combat that was film himself with a video blog doing rejection attempts. He wanted to be rejected. So he would ask silly things like, oh, can I get a burger refill? Because, you know, you get free drink refills, why can't I get a burger refill? So obviously he got a no, but the whole point was to get the no and desensitize himself from rejection. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to read a few excerpts that kind of demonstrate some of the things that he learned, as well as read off kind of his 22 lessons that he derived from this experience. A few things. Let's see. And one more thing. I also want to mention that I prefer to think of these sorts of books as self-improvement rather than self-help, just because it kind of gives a more positive connotation of how you perceive improving yourself, as opposed to being so desperate that you would need help. All right, so his first rejection attempt was as follows. I noticed a security guard sitting at his desk. What would happen if I tried to borrow $100 from him? As soon as I asked myself the question, I could feel all the hair on the back of my neck standing up. It seemed a certainty that the security guard would say no. And in fact, that was the whole point. But how would he say no? Would he cuss me out? Laugh at me? Whip out his nightstick and start clubbing me? Would he think I was a nutcase and call the nearest mental hospital asking if any 6-foot-tall Asian male patients had gone missing, all while holding me in a headlock? And wait a second, did this guy have a gun or a taser? All these questions stormed into my mind, getting crazier and darker by the second. So before I could scare myself to death, I decided to just ask the damn question and see what happened. I pulled out my phone, hit the video recording button, and aimed the camera at myself. Excuse me, I said, my heart pounding like I just downed 5 cups of coffee. He glanced up, and before he could say anything at all, I rushed in with my question. Do you think I can borrow $100 from you? He frowned. No, why? No, all right, no, okay, thanks, I said, fumbling my words. I felt a rush of white noise in my ears, and then I left as fast as I could, feeling like some sort of small animal running away from a predator that was still deciding whether to chase me or not. So I think this really exemplifies just people's general fear of being rejected, even when he wants to get the rejection. And so I'm actually going to start with reading off the list so that we can kind of get a feel for what he learned during this 100 days of rejection. So number one, rejection says more about the rejecter than the rejected. And I think this one in particular says that it's not you necessarily that's being rejected. It's they are rejecting you for whatever reason. It doesn't necessarily need to be about you. Number two, rejection is the opinion of the rejecter based on their experience, psychology, cultural differences, and historical context. So it kind of illustrates number one. Number three, rejection has a number. Keep trying and it can eventually change. This is kind of perseverance. Sometimes if you ask once, you may get a no, but maybe if you're persistent, it can pay off. And number four, ask why when you get a rejection. Because maybe you can turn a rejection into a lead, or maybe you can turn a rejection into, maybe you can address their concerns. Number five, try asking for something lesser. Don't retreat. Retreat, don't run. As in, again, maybe you asked for all of something, and maybe you can get a little bit if it has some quantity to it. Collaborate, don't contend or argue. You want to be on their side. And you might notice that some of these have some parallels to sales and marketing. Let's see, number seven, switch it up. Ask a different person in a different environment under different circumstances. So maybe you're just asking the wrong guy, the wrong woman. Maybe if you went and asked someone, different scenario, he did one rejection attempt where he tried to go out and get a job for just one day. And he actually ended up going to 3 different businesses. And on the 3rd try, they hired him for 1 day. He was just an office assistant. Let's see. Acknowledge doubts for the other person to make them more comfortable with your request. Sometimes saying that your request is actually weird and acknowledging that, yes, this is weird what you're asking. And I actually have a story for that one coming soon. Actually, let's start with that. Okay, so this was his rejection attempts from becoming a Starbucks greeter. I'm a big fan of greeters, those friendly, helpful people positioned inside the doors of giant big box stores like Walmart. The ones who magically always know exactly where you can find what you're looking for. I've always appreciated being met by a hi when I walk into stores that might otherwise feel vast and daunting, and it certainly helps to have someone on hand to direct me. But I don't shop at Walmart very often. Starbucks, on the other hand, is one of my favorite places to visit. I've always found them friendly and convenient, and I love the coffee. Starbucks doesn't have greeters though, and I doubt it ever will, but it seemed like a good enough idea for me to turn it into a rejection attempt. So I ventured into my local Starbucks one day and asked the barista if I could stand by the door for an hour or so as a Starbucks greeter. The barista's name was Eric. Not surprisingly, he had a tough time making sense of my request. I could tell that he wanted to grant my wish, but he was also unsure of my intentions. Seeing this dilemma, I tried to make him more comfortable. Is that weird? I asked him. Yeah, it's a little weird, he replied, almost with relief. But acknowledging what I had asked was strange. That what I was asking was strange seemed to put him at ease. You aren't trying to sell anything, right? He asked. He told me then that at some point they'd had a woman position herself at the door trying to sell products to incoming customers, and they'd have to ask her to leave. Eric didn't want to replay that experience, and part of his hesitation was remembering that tricky situation. I assured him that I wasn't trying to sell anything, I just really loved their coffee and wanted to help people enjoy the Starbucks experience even more. Ultimately, Eric conceded. I don't see why not, he said, as long as it doesn't get ridiculous, which it already is. For the next hour, I stood at the door and welcomed every customer who walked in with a greeting and a smile. I even tried out different phrases like, welcome to Starbucks. We have the best coffee in the world. Most people totally ignored me, though one customer did toast me with their coffee cup. I didn't mind. As a greeter, I didn't need much to be happy. Although it might seem counterintuitive, acknowledging that others people's doubts can help rather than hurt your cause. Demonstrating to Eric that I knew my request was weird actually gave me a different kind of credibility. For one, it proved to him that I wasn't crazy, and we were more or less on the same page. But it also revealed both honesty and empathy on my part, two feelings that are crucial to evoking trust. Asking, "Is this weird?" put Eric more at ease and opened his mind to my request. It gave him an opportunity to be honest with me and explain what his reservations were. That conversation then gave me the opportunity to assure him that allowing me to be a greeter would not undermine him, his customers, or his store. In the end, it more than likely increased the possibilities of me getting a yes. So that was his Starbucks greeter experience. Which, yeah, I think ultimately, throughout what he does here, is he provides kind of tactics or advice for both accepting a yes and then also giving rejections gracefully, which is the next thing on his advice list. So when rejecting, be respectful. It's kind of common sense. When rejecting, give a reason. It can actually put those that you're rejecting at ease if you give them a reason why. When rejecting, offer alternatives as well. So maybe give them something, it may not work at our company, but maybe you might try this, or maybe this product, or this person. And then he goes into a whole other section of rejection as use rejection as motivation, use rejection to improve an idea or product, more business-based. The next one being, if an idea is new and creative, it may be natural for it to be rejected at first. This can be a good thing. So people adapting to new ideas and technology, it usually takes time. And if you're the first to the market, then it will be rejected at first. Just take example, Harry Potter, the author, for example. She was rejected 12 times for the first book she wrote, and it ended up being one of the best-selling, most profitable books almost of all time. Let's see. Seek rejection to build mental toughness, which is this whole project. Use rejection to find empathy with people who face rejection. Allows you to understand what people are going through. Number 18, find value in rejection. Great achievements can only be attained after great rejection. Some rejections can signal new direction in life. Don't be afraid to ask for things that are reasonable to ask for. It could be asking for a raise. It could be just not being afraid to ask, I don't know, for a date or something like that. Accept yourself, don't look for it in others, and focus on what you can control and don't worry about what you can't. So if you get rejected and it's out of your control, that's fine. We can only do what we can do in life. And I'd like to close with one more story, which is him asking for permission to plant a flower in somebody's yard. So he actually bought a rose and just went around looking for someone. I'm going to plant this flower in your yard. Is that okay? So here we go. After buying a peach-colored, ready-to-plant, double delight rose bush, I started driving around Austin looking for a good house to approach. The last time I found myself driving around looking for a door to knock on, I was extremely nervous. But I'd become a rejection veteran by this time. I picked a house, walked up to the door, and just knocked. This time a white-haired man answered the door. He immediately eyed the rose bush in my hands. It was hard to miss. He probably assumed I was a salesman because he didn't look eager for conversation. Then I explained that I wanted to plant the rose bush in his yard free of charge. He raised an eyebrow and gave a slight smile. Okay, that's more interesting than I thought, he admitted. Thank you, but no. This was the moment. My chance to see what happens after a no. As he was about to close the door, I said, no problem, but may I ask why? Well, I don't like flowers in my yard, he explained. My dog would dig them up and destroy them. I appreciate you doing this, but you've got the wrong guy. He looked at the rose bush again. I like you giving out these flowers, he said. If you go across the street and ask Lauren, she might want it. She loves flowers. And so I admitted the rest because he basically went across the street. She allowed him to plant the flower. But the point here is, rather than just getting the no and walking away, he asked why. And it wasn't for the reasons that he thought. He thought the man might reject him because he didn't trust him or he thought it was weird. He thought that, he appreciated the offer, but it didn't fit his situation. But having the ability to ask why allowed him to get a lead, essentially. And that's my talk. Thank you.